Welcome to our Halloween special of Untold Chapters. Today we have an exclusive interview with Lee Maroney, the author of The Evil Inside 1 and 2, a skin-crawling horror book of the mysterious, monstrous being that lurks in the depths of Hallowell Village. The perfect book for fans of Stephen King and Clive Baker to keep you up at night this Halloween. Stay tuned to hear about the inspirations and truth behind Lee's masterful, emotive, and relatable characters, and how writing has helped him work past his grief of tragically losing his parents during the COVID lockdown. So, please could you start us off by just giving us a brief introduction of yourself and your books?
Yeah, my name's Lee Maroney. I'm a married man. I've got a 21-year-old daughter. I'm 48-year-old. I've had two books published with Austin Macauley, The Evil Inside 1 and 2. I've also had another two books that I've self-published, one entitled Motherly Love and the other one's called Nature's Purge.
You mentioned that writing a book has been your lifelong dream. Where did your initial passion for writing come from?
To be fair, I mean, I've loved writing as far back as I can remember. Even as a child, there was always something about being able to create something from nothing, to use your imagination in a free way to explore any avenues you desire. I mean, I've always been just a regular working class guy, but on the written page, obviously there's no limitations, there's no restrictions. So the only one that's in control is, yourself and your own imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. It's lovely just being able to create your own
Oh, absolutely.
universe, really.
Yeah, it's very freeing.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the initial inspiration behind writing The Evil Inside?
Basically, I wanted to try to create something that could maybe have appeal to a mass audience. I accept that, today people have busy lives and perhaps a slightly less lower concentration level in the past, because obviously there's so many options out there for people. So I try to keep what I do relatively simple, a book that genre fans can enjoy, but also occasional readers who just want a safe scare before turning out the bedroom light. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It's, just something that pretty much anybody can get the teeth into if they enjoy the subject matter.
Yeah, definitely. No, 100%. And it's so hard with, social media and everything as well,
Oh,
being able
absolutely.
to
Yeah.
get people to sit down and read a book.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So it's just trying to
Yeah,
find that hook.
exactly. Um, you mentioned online that your first draft of The Even Side was written back when you were 15. When did you decide to pick it back up and what drove you to do so?
Well, to be fair, I mean that first draft, yeah, that was where the initial idea came from, and the first draft was very basic, but it was something I'd go back to periodically. Now the thing is, like I said before, I'm 48 now, but I've been a carer for me wife who's disabled for the last 30 years. She spent 9 months in hospital when she was 18, and on discharge she was wheelchair bound. So my time and priorities obviously were always directed towards her.
Oh, 100%.
Subsequently, I didn't have an awful lot of time to devote to a project like writing a full novel, and that's obviously a necessity. Now we
Yeah.
have a daughter too, and as any parent will confirm, that can be a full-time job as well. So it wasn't really until I turned 40 that I fully had the opportunity to try to do this properly, to
Yeah.
really get my teeth into it. I mean, thankfully I've been doing it ever since, and it's kind of an addiction now, but I suppose better late than never.
Oh,
So,
100%. And you've got to keep yourself busy as
oh,
well.
absolutely,
And
yeah.
it's such a rewarding hobby as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I mentioned earlier, when you just to be able to create something from nothing, and be proud of what you've done at the end of it. It's really enjoyable. So
Oh, definitely. What would you say is the piece of writing that you've been the most proud of?
to be fair, where the first book was concerned, I think the fact that I managed to get it published when that was never the idea. I mean, I basically wrote as a hobby,
Mm.
and I'd got about halfway through it, and then I thought to myself, well, my style's almost totally different from the beginning because I'd become more confident.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, even though it's like almost a 600-page book. I went back to the beginning and started again. So that entire book took us almost 18 months to complete from start to finish. So I
Wow.
think basically just managing to actually get that first one over the line is
Yeah.
something I'm proud of, because plus as well, that first book, it was setting out characters which in the subsequent sequels were already there. So, you didn't have to do all the background on creating and rounding characters. It was just a matter of continuing on with the narrative after that. So yeah, genuinely, I think the first one will always be something that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, definitely. I think just completing a full novel is definitely
Well,
something to be proud of.
it's like I've said, I mean, I'm a working class guy. When I was leaving school, which feels like 200 years ago now, especially from the area where I came from, higher education was for people basically with money, shall we say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, back then, and you're only talking 32, 33 years ago, but what you did was you left school, you got you got an apprenticeship, and then you brought money into the house. So I mean,
Yeah.
my education, was I did well at school, but I finished by the end of my GCSEs, so I didn't have any real formal training. So to
Wow.
be able
Yeah.
to actually manage to write a novel, by being sort of self-educated, I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, it makes a bit of a difference.
No, it definitely does. I mean, in comparison to obviously nowadays with so many, younger authors and stuff coming out with
Well, I mean, to be
this.
fair, I mean, I'll just give you an example. I mean, my graduating class at school, I think there was two people literally out of that whole class went on to do A levels.
Wow.
When my daughter, when she finished, I think there was two that actually left. Everybody else stayed on for A levels. There's so many more opportunities for young people now,
Yeah.
which is great. But
Yeah.
back then, those sort of doors weren't necessarily open to working class people. So
No,
it,
exactly.
it's just the way the world's gone, and it's fantastic that young people have so many. I basically I wish I had my time over, so I could have took education a little bit more seriously. But back then, there just wasn't the opportunities.
When it comes to the actual setting, the sort of like main it's
Hallowell,
Hallowell, yes.
yeah,
You said that it's actually based off of a real place and a real sort of location. There's some
yeah,
dark history
basically,
behind it.
yeah. Hallowell's based. It's a fictional town in the northwest of England, but
Hmm.
I grew up in the northeast, and the village that I grew up in, it's a little place called St Helens. It's not the same St Helens. It's better known in Liverpool. Um, and that was, in my mind, a sort of mirror image of Hallowell. Now, where that was concerned, there was a building on the edge of town, and well away from residential places,
Yeah.
which are basically based the central building from the evil inside Hallowell railway station on, and
Ah,
it was the sort of place that I've no idea if ghosts exist or if they don't, but if they do, that place was haunted because
wow.
it was the sort of place for adventurous kids. It was like bees around a honey pot.
Yeah.
So legitimately, that was my original inspiration for writing the book. Because as soon as you walk in there, if you had an imagination, you know that it would be fired up. So
Yeah, just
yeah,
run
that
wild.
absolutely.
So for obviously the inspiration of the protagonist, did you take any sort of inspiration for his backstory as personality from your own experiences, or was it all completely you just invented this amazing
Well,
character?
strangely, I mean, my wife probably won't like me mentioning this, but firstly, the primary protagonist in it, the character called Frank Graham,
Mm.
I gave him a condition called porphyria. Now, it's a rare genetic disease, very rare. It shows
Mhm.
in a lot of different forms, but the inspiration I got from there is because that's the condition that my wife has that made her ill all those years ago.
Oh, bless. Wow.
Yeah. Now, basically, where my wife was concerned, it was an allergy to medications that basically shut her body down. She was on a ventilator for 5 months, and that's the reason she's in a wheelchair today still. But it can also show in a lot of different ways. It can show as a sort of mental defect.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that's where I got the Frank Graham character from.
Wow.
Instead of just having a guy that went crazy for no reason, I actually wrote him as somebody with this defect that unfortunately took him in a very different path. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, the truth of the matter is, that I love writing from sort of personal experiences. I can give you one example if you don't mind.
Oh no, please do.
Um, the thing is, in my third book, I've got a character that was on the brink of mental breakdown
Mm.
because he lost his two biological parents and his stepfather at the same time. Basically, as I say, this character was on the brink of mental breakdown. He'd had
Hmm.
these tragedies in his life. Now, strangely enough, as strange as this might sound, I'd actually experienced that myself 3 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
bless.
I lost my stepdad very suddenly, and in
Gosh.
the aftermath, my mama was completely devoted to him. Well, basically, not to put it too bluntly, she died of choice rather than of an illness.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
basically died of a broken heart.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, say incredible as this might sound, 2 weeks after my mum passed, I discovered my dad had committed suicide. It was right in the middle of COVID. Now, the thing is, a lot of people might find this to be a bit morbid,
Mm.
but I took that as not necessarily an inspiration, but I used it and basically fictionalized the character as a
Yeah.
cathartic way of coping with the loss that I'd had. It's,
Yeah.
free therapy, I suppose.
No,
But,
definitely.
the thing is, and I think that's one of the reasons why I always try to stay as close as possible to realism in my books rather than straying too far away from the unbelievable. Because I do believe if a reader can't envision something, then you lose them straight away.
No,
So,
100%.
anything that I can take from my own life that I can sort of transplant into my books, I tend to do that. So yeah, it's not for everybody, and as I say, some people might find it morbid, but it genuinely helped me through a really rough time.
I think it's a really beautiful way of using your grief to, better understand it and form your own way of coping with that. I think that's a
Yeah,
really special way.
and and as well, I mean, this all went on during COVID, so basically you were kind of trapped in your own house with all
Yeah.
these thoughts going through your head. So it was the best thing I could think of to free myself from that and actually try to produce something that you know others might. I'm not going to say enjoy reading because it's not necessarily a nice subject matter, but others might be able to read and see as something that it's difficult to put into words, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was the process at least.
Well, I guess also it's immortalizing the memories of those people as well,
Yeah,
being able
absolutely. The
to
thing is, I
write them.
mean, I went, right the way as much detail as happened in my life. I tried to put it into that chapter of the book.
Yeah.
Um, and actually seeing the words on page. And I've got a friend from America who does a podcast, and he actually read the whole chapter on his podcast. And hearing
Oh,
him
look.
read it back as well, it stirred the emotions, but at the same time, it was slightly cathartic. So
Yeah, it's hugely impactful. And as you said, it's a great way to connect to the reader on a completely different level of emotion, especially if they can relate to those feelings too, having
yeah, well, I
gone through
mean,
similar
obviously,
situations.
where that chapter was concerned, it was virtually biographical. So
Got
it's
you.
yeah, it's not something that I don't think I could have made something like that. To be perfectly honest, you tell people the story, and all this happened, say, over in a 13-month period. So you
Gosh.
tell people a story, and people think, yeah, you're an author, you've made it up. No, no,
Yeah.
not that
No.
one, I'm afraid. But I wish I had, but never mind.
Yeah. Obviously, you have mentioned previously that you were working on a third book of the Evil Inside series. Was there any development on that, or was there anything that you wanted to reveal about it, or
Yeah,
what
well,
readers to
yeah,
expect?
it's actually been complete for
Oh wow.
about 6 months. It's definitely the concluding chapter. The
Hmm.
thing is, if I thought like writing The Evil Inside 3 was just rehashing old ground, I would never have written it. But with the path that I've chosen on this one, I think it is an original piece rather than just a sequel. It was
Oh wow.
the characters that I'd been writing for 4 or 5 years by this stage.
Yeah.
I'd become close to them, and I still felt they had life left in them. And unfortunately, by the conclusion of this story, that doesn't necessarily stay the way for all of them. But I think that's probably as much as I should reveal for the time being. But
Yeah, a nice little hook for the readers.
with any luck.
Oh, well, thank you so much for today. Was there anything else that you wanted to add or to promote?
Uh, as I've said, I've got the two Evil Inside books with yourselves. I've also
Hmm.
got two other novels, Motherly Love and Nature's Purge. Those are both available on Amazon as well. So if there's anybody out there that's read any of my stuff but didn't know about the others, then feel free to gi- give them a view.
Thank you so much, Lee, for spending the time to speak to us, and thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in the Evil Inside books or any of Lee's self-published work, there are links in the description below to find them. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking the video and subscribing for more content like this. Speak to you next Friday for another Untold Chapters episode. Have a great Halloween.